I'm sorry.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Dr. Fitz,
Here.
Mr. Howell,
Here.
Mr. Lockwood,
Here.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Here. Before we begin our hearing tonight, unless there's a change or addition or correction to last month's minutes, a motion to accept, please.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Lockwood, second by Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes. Before we begin our hearing tonight, our counselor, Mr. Hoy Hodges, will tell you what you have to do in order to get your request approved. Mr. Hodges?
And, Mr. Chairman, on all of these applications tonight, I'd ask the following matters be made a part of the record: the joint zoning ordinance of Bowling Green, Warren County, the comprehensive plan, the staff report, along with all of the exhibits that are attached to those reports should also be made a part of the record tonight. And if you would swear in Rachel Hurt, Jenny Willoughby, and Amy Scott, and recognize their qualifications as zoning administrators.
Do you ladies swear to tell the truth? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, tonight we have both applications for variances and also conditional use permits. With respect to the variance, there are certain findings that the board must make. Those are set forth in KRS 100.243. The board must find that the requested variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, that it will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, that the requested variance will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and that it will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. There's also a request for a variance, and in respect to that request, the same findings must be made in addition to the findings set forth in section 3.8.4F of the zoning ordinance. On the conditional use permits, those findings are set forth in section 3.9.5 of the zoning ordinance. The board must find that the conditional use is not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of the zone in which it is proposed, that the use will not contribute toward an overburdening of municipal services, that the use will not constitute a nuisance, and that it otherwise adequately addresses the review criteria in section 3.9.4, and also that it's in compliance with any specific use standards it may apply. And I mentioned the review criteria in section 3.9.4, and that includes compatibility. And that section goes one step further. It says that the applicant must adequately address the review criteria as it may apply to your requested conditional use permit, and that includes compatibility. So the burden of proof is on the applicant to address compatibility and any other of the criteria that may apply. In order to prevail, you need a majority vote of those present. A pass vote has no force or effect. If anyone's dissatisfied with the decision here tonight, you have 30 days to file an appeal, and that would go directly to Warren Circuit Court. I believe that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Our first request tonight, Bill Miller, LLC, care of Bill Miller, has filed an application requesting a variance of 5 feet from the required 10 feet rear yard setback and a variance of 15 feet from the required 25 feet front yard setback in order to construct a single-family home on the property located at 817 West Main Avenue, Unit C. This property is zoned RM4, multifamily residential. Looks like Rachel's there.
Yes, sir. Give me 1 minute here, and we will get going. All right, so the first application this evening, as you mentioned, is located at 817 West Main Avenue, and the applicants have applied for 2 variances. We will look at the zoning first, which is RM4, and the current land use is vacant. And here is the exhibit that was submitted with the application. So just to get yourself oriented, West Main Avenue is just located right here, and the property is right there. So looking at the zoning ordinance reference, we're looking at section 453B5, which states that single-family residential development in the in the RM4 zone shall utilize the RS1D property development standards. And those standards require a 10-foot rear yard setback and a 25-foot front yard setback. So the applicant has requested a variance from the rear yard, which would be right here, for the setback to be 5 feet. And then along the front property line, in this section of the property, the applicant has requested a variance of 15 feet for the setback to be 10 feet. On page 2 of your application, we've included the variance findings for your reference. And about midway down, there's a brief narrative that was supplied by the applicant as a part of their application. That is also included for your reference. And so the board should consider if the applicants have adequately addressed the findings required to grant the variance requests. And we do have a few points for your consideration on page number 1. At the bottom, the property is only 2,600 square feet in size, which is 2,400 square feet less than the minimum lot size that is typically required by the zoning ordinance in the RM4 zone. The lot is unusually shallow, which creates a smaller than normal building envelope and limits development of the site. And the proposed variance may alter the character of the area. There are currently no other primary structures in this block of West Main Avenue that are located 10 feet from the property line, although there are a couple of structures in the area that do encroach into the 25-foot setback. That is all for the staff report, but I am happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Does the board have any questions of the staff? Any questions of the staff from the board? Is the applicant here? Is the applicant here? Oh, there, I couldn't see you. Okay. Does the board have any questions of the
I
applicant?
do.
Sure. Would you mind coming up, sir?
No, of the staff.
Of the staff,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Just say.
Rachel, the lots, I understand, this one faces Main Street. What about these others that are backed up to the commercial
Are
property?
you talking about, if we go back to the aerial, these two
Yes,
properties?
yes.
Those are building lots as well, and the applicant has applied for building permits on those. And in that scenario, those structures meet all of the required setbacks. It was just this lot where the setbacks could not be met.
Okay, because they don't, visually it looks smaller, but that's what I was looking for. How are they different? Okay.
I think the difference here is the front yard setback. It eats up so much of the property where there was really a very limited building envelope in this case.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the staff? And the applicant is here. Does the board have any questions of the applicant? Questions of the applicant? Any opposition to this request? Have any opposition to the request? Motion, please.
So you don't want to testify?
Unless you have some questions for him, I don't, yeah. Do you want to add anything to what she's got to say? Come on, we need to swear you in then, yeah. Your full name and address, please.
Bill Miller, 236 State Street.
You swear to tell the truth, sir?
I do.
Okay. John, do you have a question? No, go ahead.
The three lots originally had homes on them, and basically we're just building back on lots that were built on before. I know the setback on it, when it was originally built, was approximately the same as what I'm trying to do now. Just trying to put affordable housing in the area.
So this will be what you would consider affordable housing?
Yes, sir.
All right. That helps you on your stuff, doesn't it? All right. Thank you. Any questions of the applicant from the board? Any questions? Thank you, sir. Once again, any opposition to this request? Motion, please.
Make a motion we deny the request for variances, docket number 2024-V-21, the variance of 5 feet from the required 10-foot rear building setback and a variance of 15 feet from the required 25-foot front building setback. Because accepting this motion would allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulation, and it is not compatible with the neighborhood.
Second.
It's proper motion.
Okay. Motion, Dr. Fitz, second by Ms. Atkinson.
Dr. Fitz?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
No.
Chair Davenport.
No. Your request has been denied, sir. You have 30 days to appeal it to circuit court. Our next request tonight, Jerry Marr has filed an application requesting a variance of 25 feet from the required 25 feet front building setback along West Fifth Street in order for a newly constructed attached carport to be located 0 feet from the property line on the property located at 515 North Main Street in Smith Grove. This property is zoned RM3, townhouse multifamily residential. Rachel.
Thank you, Chair Davenport. We had a pre-application meeting back in November of last year for this property, located at 515 North Main Street in Smiths Grove. This is the current aerial view for the property, and you can see that the current zoning is RM3, as you mentioned. The current land use is single-family residential, and I did forget on the last case, my apologies, but we do have some property photos. They're also included in your staff report for reference. So the applicants have applied for a variance in this case for the existing carport, which is shown in the photo here. And this is a view from another angle. So this would be looking up West 5th Street from North Main. And then I'll leave the exhibit up in case we need to refer to that as well. So the zoning ordinance reference is listed on page 1. Similar to the last application, when you're looking at single-family development and a multifamily zone, we do defer to the appropriate single-family development standards, in this case RS1C, which requires that on corner lots, front yard setbacks be provided along all frontages. And the front yard setback in RS1C is 25 feet, and the applicants have applied for a variance of 25 feet for the required setback along West 5th to be 0. Looking on page 2, we have included the variance findings for your reference, and you can see about midway down, there's a narrative that was supplied by the applicant as a part of their application to help address these findings, and the board should consider if the applicant has adequately addressed these findings. The property owner was notified during the time of construction that the carport encroached into the required setback along West 5th Street. The Warren County Building Department issued a stop work order. However, the property owner completed construction of the carport out of compliance with the ordinance. On page 1, we do have a few points for your consideration. The first, the applicant constructed the carport without prior approval of a permit. Second, if the proposed variance is approved, relief from the board would only apply to the portion of the carport located on the property and not the encroachment in the right-of-way for West 5th Street. And third, the board should consider the impact on the character of the area if the variance is granted, though there are existing legal nonconforming structures in the immediate vicinity that do encroach into the required 25-foot front yard setback. That is all for the staff report, but I am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the board? Yeah.
Yes. A couple of things, Rachel. This is zone RM3. I called and questioned that because all these homes on Main Street are single family. Could you explain how this ended up as a multi-family zoning? I know this went years back, Matthew explained to me, but I think it'd be helpful to the other board members.
Sure, yeah, so you're right, the property is zoned multifamily. If we look at the land use map and compare the two, you'll see the use is single family along with many of the other homes that are located in that same area with the same zoning designation. But I guess the easiest answer is that prior to 2001, we had different zones. We didn't differentiate necessarily between multifamily and single family. We just had 4 residential zones. Some of them allowed single family and multifamily. Others allowed only single family, but they were really based on the lot size that was required. So if your lot was X amount of square feet, you would go in an R3 zone, for example. So it wasn't really separated at that time. And then when the current ordinance was adopted, and I'd have to go back, I know Smiths Grove had a separate zoning ordinance for a while before it was combined with ours. I don't know the specific timing of that, but it was similar in that they had a limited number of zones, and then it just all ended up getting converted to multifamily as the ordinance was modernized.
So it was more of a blanket to accommodate the lot sizes rather the intention that it was appropriate for multifamily.
Yeah, I guess, so it would have been like, okay, so in this case, it would have been R3. So in R3, the old ordinance would have said, if you're going to develop in this zone, your minimum lot size is this, 8,000 square feet. And in this zone, you can develop either single-family or multifamily, but then it would be dependent on how much land area you had and if you could meet the development standards for more than just one home on the property.
Got it. Okay. And is not, a couple of blocks behind this is a potential, I know that before planning and zoning, there's a potential subdivision back behind, 2 blocks behind 3rd, 4th, and 5th Street, if I'm not mistaken.
It'd be to the west. There was a zoning proposal on Hedge Street.
Right. And the school.
And the school, yes.
Warren County has also bought property on Hedge Street as well,
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
It just occurs to me if those are future developments, there is going to be more traffic potentially on these small 3rd, 4th, and 5th Street. That was my point.
Possibly, I don't know that 5th cuts all the way through to Hedge. I know 4th and 1st do, for sure, so those would probably be the main routes before 5th would be, just because it doesn't cut through that far, but it's possible, I suppose, that people might cut through this way.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the board or the staff? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank
Is
you.
the applicant here? We might have a couple questions for you, sir, if you'd come up. Could we get your full name and address, please?
Jerry M. Marr, 515 North Main Street, Smith Grove.
And you swear to tell the truth, sir?
Yes,
The main question I've got is, when you, from what the staff report says, and you can verify this and tell us what happened, when you received a stop order permit for the construction?
Yes.
You didn't stop, you went ahead and finished it.
they'd had it, the people that was working on it and stuff, they had it 3/4 under roof. So they went ahead and put the shingles and stuff on it to keep it from turning water back into our house.
Why did you not get the permit before you started the construction on the,
We filed for the permit, and Amish is the one that would done the construction of the carport, and they had a problem with getting their license because they didn't have a mailing address. They had to go pick them up, and they received their license over the phone because I had to help them get their license. They had their license, but they wouldn't mail to them. So,
are you concerned about where the supports for that carport is, close to that street? If a couple of cars come by there and they kind of get a little cockeyed as drivers do,
Well-
they will not run right through that support?
well, if you looked at the pictures real good, you can tell that the street, Fifth Street, is wider up at the front than it is at the end over at Cave Street, because that's where we used to park at, in front of the carport. There's a parking area right there.
Okay. All right. All right, any other questions of the applicant from the board? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any opposition to this request? Do we have any opposition? All right, motion, please.
I make the
Chairman,
motion
Wait a
to,
minute.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
before I make that motion, I do want to remind the board that the provisions of KRS 100.243 says that if the violations were willful, that the board shall deny any requested variance. So if the board makes the determination that these were in fact willful violations of the zoning ordinance, then they are directed by statute to deny the request.
Motion, please. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I make the motion to deny the request for variances, docket number 2024-V-25, a variance of 25 feet from the required 25-foot building setback along West Fifth Street because it will adversely affect the public safety and will alter the essential character of the general vicinity.
That's proper motion.
Okay. Second to the motion?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Atkinson and second by Dr. Fitz. Did you second it? Oh, Jim did. I'm sorry. Second by Mr.
Atkinson?
Lockwood.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
No.
Dr. Fitz?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Chair Davenport?
Yes. Your request has been denied, sir. Sorry. All right, our next request tonight, Edward Taylor has filed an application requesting a waiver for the total square footage of the accessory structures to be greater than the square footage of the primary structure on the property located at 2367 Russell Road. This property is zoned HB Highway Business and AG Agricultural. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting in October for the property located on Russellville Road. There is an aerial perspective. The current zoning is, as you said, it's ag and highway business. And then the current land use is single-family residential. And here is their exhibit. We can flip it if need be for different perspectives. And we also have some images if we need to go through those, but they're at the back of your packet. So the applicant is requesting a waiver of 5,871 square feet to allow all accessory structures proposed and existing to be greater in square footage than that of the principal structure. And so we do have more detail in the staff review summary that we will get to shortly. So looking down to the zoning ordinance reference, the provisions, or section 4.3.4, property development standards table, property under 2 acres must adhere to 445E. And then that reference is for accessory structures, and that the total area of all accessory buildings shall not exceed the floor area of the principal building unless located in the unincorporated area of Warren County on a lot containing a minimum of 1 acre in the Ag, RR, and RE zoning districts. And so that is where their waiver request comes in, and that it is a request to be greater in square footage than that of the principal structure. The bottom of page 1 and moving over to page 2 has the waiver findings. And then the applicant has submitted a narrative about midway down the page that addresses their compatibility arguments and whether they meet the findings. And the board should consider if the applicant has adequately addressed the findings required for granting the waiver request. And looking down to the staff review summary for more details, they are requesting that total waiver of 5,871 square feet. For reference, the existing accessory structures on the property are a total of 4,274 square feet, and the proposed building would be adding an additional 3,325 square feet, making the total square footage 7,599. The existing home on the property is 1,728 square feet. And so with all of that, we will look back to page 1 for a single point to consider. And so the waiver request will not alter the character of the area, as the structures on the property would not be greater in bulk and scale than the adjacent apartment buildings. And that's all that I have for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
This is zoned AG and HB, but the land use is single-family residential. Is this house the only house that there's a residence in? Or says it was, I'm trying to figure out where the single-family residential usage is in that area right there.
So it's a little easier to see in the photos. This is the home that looks to be the single-family use from
That's
our
not-
discussions with the applicant, as well as just, visiting the property. These are the accessory buildings. It looks like there's just multiple accessory buildings, and that's the home.
Okay, all right, just curious. All right, any questions of the staff and the board? Applicants are here somewhere? Yeah. Do we have any questions of the applicant on this, the board? All right, any opposition to this request? Any opposition? Motion, please.
He does want to ask a question.
I'm sorry, we can just step up, sorry. Yeah. And we get your full name and address,
Edward Taylor, 507 Bellevue, Bowling Green.
and you swear to tell the truth, sir?
Yes.
Dr.
I do.
Fitz?
When were all these accessory structures placed?
Where?
When?
When? The rock garage there, you see in the picture on the left, was built, I'm assuming the same time the house was built in 1930. The larger green building, I'm thinking in the early 1960s. The other green building in the back of that used to be a chicken coop, which was torn down and the pole barn, whatever, put on it about, I'm going to guess, 15 years ago.
So at that time, did they have to get any kind of okay from, under 15 years ago?
That's a staff
Build
question,
something.
I guess.
I guess none of us were here 15 years ago, but the structures have been there long enough to be legal non-conforming or grandfathered in, so.
Yeah, I'm thinking the chicken coop
Yeah.
was there originally, and I believe at the time we enclosed or tore the chicken coop down or whatever, they said there wasn't a problem since they didn't enlarge the footprint of the building or whatever. That wouldn't be a problem. Apparently it hasn't been.
Okay.
And why did this come up at this time?
So the waiver that's requested was triggered by a new building that's planned to be constructed. If you look on page 7 of your staff report, there's a new building that's proposed at the rear portion of the property. And so for that reason, we're here tonight with the waiver request because the property would become more non-conforming by allowing the square footage to exceed what it already does with all of the other buildings. So it's just the new building that has triggered the
Well, we could
application.
just deny that new building then, right? Is that what we're doing, basically?
That's up to you all, how you want to,
But the
Vote,
other
but-
buildings, what he's asking, I think, Rachel, is, but the other buildings, we have no request
We have no
to
request.
approve or deny
Correct.
those
The-
existing
the
grandfathers.
Just the new
existing
one.
buildings are legal non-conforming and can remain as is indefinitely. The only thing for your consideration this evening is the new building.
Which will not alter the character of the neighborhood according to what you say.
Rachel, the ingress and egress from Victoria Boulevard, or not Victoria, but Veterans, where is that? It does not have anything on Russell Road.
Yeah, let me go back to the site plan. I think the site plan is on page
Yeah, there is
7
a
of your staff
egress.
Well,
report.
I know there's been one there for years, but as far as the land, yeah, I'm not clear, does this property have road frontage?
Yeah, so it has frontage on Veterans.
Okay, what you're saying
And
is-
then also on Russellville Road.
Okay, but you can't get an ingress and egress on Russell Road, I don't think.
Well, there
Well,
is
there's
an
one-
egress there at the house, yes.
There's one here. There's the existing driveway here on Russellville Road.
I see.
Oop,
Right.
sorry. I
Yeah,
haven't used this
It's
before.
next to the cash checking place, yeah.
Yes.
And then there's another
now,
entrance up
the-
here on Veterans.
The veterans ingress and egress, so what you're saying, the land between this property and the highway belongs to who?
Keith Hughes. There at Cash Express.
But I see.
Or are you
once
talking
get
about where my
past
cursor is? Are you talking about the?
that, Very tail end
Yes.
of the
Yeah.
long part of the lot.
Right here, where my cursor is on the screen?
And I'm looking for you, yes. right there.
That's part of the right-of-way owned by KYTC for Veterans Memorial.
But the entrance to this property
It's
crosses
just that one
the
spot,
back.
that's the only legal entrance.
Well, from Veterans, it's right here.
Right,
Yes,
and it is illegal, it is.
it's already there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's there, but it's really the land and the lots and the drawing here is a little confusing. But I see what you're saying. I wasn't clear on who owned the land between the highway and this property.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's
That's
state.
And this-
KYTC right-of-way.
Right.
Is this just going to be a storage building?
Yes, sir, it's
So
just
there
going to
shouldn't
be
be
a
much
shop
traffic in
storage
and out.
building. The reason it's so large, I wanted to consolidate my shop with the other 3 outbuildings that's got lumber and lawnmowers and stuff like that. I kind of want to consolidate that into just one building.
So you're not going to really have any traffic in and out?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I'm sorry.
Is it up for sale, or has it been up for sale?
The front part is.
Okay.
There's basically 2 acres. And halfway between that egress off of Veterans, me and my neighbor are wanting to sell the front half of the property. I'm going to keep the back half of my property and move my shop back there.
You're gonna have some free land back there.
Yeah, Yeah, basically, yes.
That's okay, yeah,
Yes.
I figured that was your intent, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, that's highly desirable corner for somebody.
For some, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions of the applicant? From the board? Thank you, sir, appreciate it. Once again, is there any opposition to this request? Any opposition? How about a motion now?
I make the motion to approve the request for a waiver, docket number 2024-V-26, a waiver of 5,871 square feet to allow all accessory structures, proposed and existing, to be greater in square footage than the principal structure. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the granting of these waivers will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. I further find that the waivers will not violate the comprehensive plan, and the extent of the waivers of the regulation is the minimum necessary to afford relief to the applicants, and the requested waivers arise from special circumstances which do not generally apply to land in the general vicinity.
That's a proper motion.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Atkinson, a second by Mr. Lockwood.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Dr. Fitz?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Chair Davenport?
Yes, your request has been approved, sir. Thank you for coming down, appreciate it. Our next request tonight, BFLC Holdings LLC applicant and Liveaway Ministries, Inc. owner, have filed an application requesting a CUP to operate a daycare on the property located at 2896 Plano Road. And this property is zoned AG agricultural. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting also in early October for the property on Plano Road. Here's an aerial for reference for that property. The current zoning of the property is agriculture. Current land use is public institutional. And then there are their site plans. And for reference, that is on page, I believe, 7 of your staff report. And there are 2 perspectives to the site plan. There is a zoomed-in perspective on the buildings and then a larger perspective to show the location of the playground. So the applicants are requesting a CUP to operate a daycare. The zoning ordinance reference is in the middle of page 1. Article 5, Section 5.1 of the use table, a conditional use permit is required to operate a daycare in property zoned ag. The specific use standards for a daycare are on the bottom of page 1, moving into page 2, and then we'll look at their couple of conditions that they supplied. First is that the hours of operation will be from 6:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. And then second, there will be a maximum of 120 children. The conditional use permit findings are there below that on the bottom of page 2. And with that, we'll look back to page 1. Staff have no points to consider pending public hearing and testimony here tonight. And that's all that I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions of the staff from the board? Board got any questions of the staff? Are the applicants here? Over there. Does the board have any questions of the applicants? From what I understand, daycares are needed, that's for sure. So, motion, please. I'm sorry, any opposition to this request? Any opposition? Motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the conditional use permit, docket number 2024-C-31 for a daycare center with the conditions as presented in the staff report. Testimony presented at this public hearing shows that the uses are certainly not detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare in the zoning which is proposed. The uses will not contribute to an overburdening of municipal services. The uses will not result in increased traffic congestion, additional parking problems, substantial increase in population density, environmental problems, or constitute a nuisance, and it otherwise meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And this is certainly a compatible use in this zone.
This proper motion.
Second.
Motion, Dr. Fitz, second by Ms. Atkinson.
Dr. Fitz?
Yes?
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Chair Davenport?
Yes, that request has been approved. Thank you all. Good luck to you. That'll help a lot of people, I got a feeling.
We're trying.
All right, good luck. Our next request tonight, Bradley and Amanda Greenwell have filed an application requesting a conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental on the property located at 4015 Main Street North in Smiths Grove. This property is zoned RM3 Townhouse Multifamily Residential. Back to Smiths Grove again.
Yes, thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on October 11 for the property that you mentioned. The current zoning is RM2. Their current land use is single-family residential. And again, the applicants are requesting a CUP to operate a short-term rental, and the site plan is there for your reference. You can see their general parking areas for their site layout there. Middle through the page is a zoning ordinance reference. Article 5, Section 5.1, the use table, a conditional use permit is required to operate a short-term rental on property zoned RM2. Below that are the specific use standards for short-term rentals. If you flip over to page 2, the applicants did supply a list of conditions. Number 1, a maximum of 4 rooms for rent. Number 2, a maximum of 4 guest vehicles in the designated parking areas. And number 3, quiet hours will be from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Below that are the conditional use permit findings for reference. And if you look over to page 1 for the points to consider, the Board of Adjustment should consider if the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area, including the existing single-family residential uses located adjacent to the property and in the general vicinity. And the board should consider the impacts on permanent workforce housing availability in this part of the county if the existing single-family residence is converted into a short-term rental. That's all we have for a staff report. Be happy to answer any questions.
I've got, probably doesn't make any difference, but on the agenda, it's zoned RM3, and on the application, it's RM2. Is the application supposed to be RM3?
It's zoned RM3.
3. I think it's a
So
typo.
it's just a typo.
Is that just a typo?
Yeah, so it's RM3.
That doesn't cause any
Yeah.
problem, does it? Okay. Applicants here, would you come up? I think we got a couple of questions for you.
I got a question.
I'm sorry, from the staff. I'm sorry, I didn't ask it yet.
The aerial that you have here shows the property line going through the adjacent piece of property? Or
Yes,
is it-
I don't think these properties have been platted, so those are just approximate, just the way the aerials
So-
are, but,
The existing property is 2 buildings?
No.
No?
no, the existing is one. If you can see on the actual site plan itself, I printed that out for the applicants. That's the PVA version of that.
I understand.
But I think the property line shifts over, they have the X's that are through the site plan. That's the,
I see
That
they
would-
have a fence there. They
yeah,
have
through there. So
steel
I think
fence.
just the lines are,
Okay, that define it.
Yeah.
And that creates a parking situation.
well, they could potentially have one in the front with the one that's labeled 4, and then they would have 3 spaces in the rear. Is
So
what they're
they
proposing
are
off the
going
alley.
to, is there, I didn't see an existing, there's a gravel driveway or something there?
They proposed to the city of Smiths Grove to inquire about an entrance from the alleyway. I'm sure the applicant can speak to that as far as that goes.
So
And then they have
one in
one
front,
space in
3
the
in the
front.
back.
I'm sorry, what's that?
1 in front, 3 in the back?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other question of the staff from the board? Applicant, would you come up, please? If we get your full name and address, please.
Bradley Greenwell, 1770 Hayes, Smith Grove Road.
Do you swear to tell the truth, sir?
Yes.
Are you aware that in the past year, we had a similar application for a property maybe just a block down from where this is that we denied a request for?
No.
I kind of want to put that in the record that we did deny this.
home occupation.
I thought we had a bed and
We had a
breakfast there.
short-term.
It
It's a short-term rental.
There was one approved in 2022 for a short-term rental.
Didn't we turn one down there?
Yes,
We turned one down,
yeah.
yeah.
Closer
that
to
same
down-
street, yeah.
Closer to downtown.
Across
on
the
Main
street from this property, down one block. There's a short-term rental we turned down just recently.
There was one approved in 2022 that was across.
That one, I think, was back in the, that was on
College Street.
College Street, yeah. That wasn't on Main Street. We turned down the one on Main Street.
I'm not recalling
Yeah.
that specific one that you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we did, yeah.
Yeah.
The compatibility with the neighborhood, you're putting a mini hotel right there on Main Street with basically no parking out front, and your back right now does not show any parking, it's just grass yard.
We are going to apply with the county to be able to put a driveway in the back. The reason why we think that it is compatible with the area is Main Street is the main business area of Smiths Grove. We are 1,000 feet, less than 1,000 feet from commercial property already. And then there is also mixed-use property within the adjacent area at the, if you look at the red property off of, I think, 5th Street.
Isn't the neighboring property single-family residential, though?
The one on the left and the right of the property is single-family. Across the street is a church.
All right.
And then behind the property is vacant lots.
All right.
And then 2 vacant houses.
Okay. Any other questions from the board of the applicant? Thank you, sir. Any opposition to this request? Any opposition? Motion, please.
I make the motion to deny the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C-32 for a short-term rental located 415 North Main Street because the proposed use is not compatible with the surrounding area and a negative impact on workforce housing availability.
It's a proper motion.
All right. Motion by Ms. Atkinson, second by?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lockwood.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Dr. Fitz?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Chair Davenport?
Yes, that request has been denied also. Thank you for coming down. Our next request tonight, Dung Lu and Van D. Tran have filed an application requesting a conditional use permit to operate a religious institution at the property located at 126 Gherkin Road. The applicants have also filed a concurrent application requesting a variance of 10 feet from the required 10 feet landscape buffer, a variance of 10 feet from the required 10 feet incompatible land use buffer, and a waiver from the maximum lot coverage requirement. And this property is zoned RE Residential Estate. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on August the 24th for this particular property. It is zoned RE, and the current land use is public institutional. Again, the applicants are requesting a CUP to operate a religious institution. The applicants are also requesting 2 variances and a waiver associated with the use relating to landscape and incompatible land use buffers and lot coverage. So we'll look at the zoning ordinance reference section for the specifics of that in just a moment. And again, this property was approved for religious institution in 2022. The new applicant is seeking the request because there was a condition that was placed on the application that nullifies the CUP if the property is ever sold. So looking down to the zoning ordinance reference, section 5, Point 1 of the use table, a conditional use permit is required to operate a religious institution on property zoned RE. Below that, in Article 4, in Section 4683A3, that is the requirements for screening for the vehicle use areas in a common property line. Therefore, variance request number 1 comes from that section for a variance of 10 feet from the required 10 feet landscape buffer. And that's also referenced on the site plan as well, the variance. Then section 4.468D2D, all buffers located between incompatible land uses must be a minimum of 10 feet in width. So that's where variance number 2 comes from, a variance of 10 feet from the required 10 feet incompatible land use buffer. And then section 4.4.5B, the maximum allowable lot coverage in the RE zone is 30%. And so they are requesting a waiver of 15% from the required 30% lot coverage to allow a total lot coverage of 45%. If we look over to page 2 for the list of conditions. So per Article 3, Section 396, when considering a conditional use permit, the Board of Adjustments may attach certain conditions to its approval which it feels are necessary requirements in order to preserve and protect the character of the district in which the proposed use would be located. So if this application is approved, staff does suggest a couple of conditions. Number 1, a drainage plan must be submitted to the Warren County Public Works for review prior to issuance of a paving permit. And staff also suggests that the applicants apply for a change of use permit and a sign permit through the Warren County Building Services Office. Below that are the list of conditions that the applicants supplied. So number 1, Buddhist meditation and Buddhist worship related activities shall take place between 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with exceptions for special days and holidays, not to exceed 4 events per calendar year. Number 2, a meditation hall is to be added at the back of the lot. The future accessory structure will be used for a meditation room and will not exceed 3,000 square feet, and that is also identified on their site plan. Number 3, if the property is ever sold or the applicant ceases the use, the CUP will be null and void. The applicant did express interest in removing this condition from the application, so that might be a discussion with the applicants with regards to condition number 3. Excuse me. Number 4, any improvements to the access to the property shall be coordinated and approved by KYTC. Number 5, applicants shall coordinate any sanitary provisions with the Barren River Health Department. Number 6, there shall be a maximum of 40 people in the congregation, with exceptions for periodic special events not to exceed, and that's a typo, it should be 4 events per calendar year. And below that, in the bullet point, we did try to compare the past application and the current application. So conditions for both the 2022 and 2024 applications are very similar. The 2022 application included a future meditation hall of a maximum of 1,000 square feet and a maximum of 16 people in the congregation. The new application is proposing a future meditation hall of a maximum of 3,000 square feet and a maximum of 40 people in the congregation. So those are the differences between the two. Below that are the conditional use finding permits for your review. If we look over on page 3, there are the variance and waiver findings for review. If we look at page 4, the applicants did supply a narrative relating to those variance and waiver findings, and the board should consider if the applicants have adequately addressed the findings required for granting the variances and waiver. And looking back to page 1, to the points to consider, the proposed development meets the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance with the exception of the required landscape buffers and lot coverage for which the applicants have requested variances and a waiver. The property will be subject to further compliance review during the permitting process if this application is approved. And then if we go over to page 2, The board previously approved a religious institution CUP for this property in 2022. The proposed conditions with this application are very similar in occupancy and accessory uses to those that were approved in the 2022 application. And a public park and school are located in close proximity to the property. The board should consider if the proposed use will result in increased traffic congestion or constitute a nuisance in the area. That's all we have for a staff report. Be happy to answer any of your questions.
On the landscape buffer, the 10 feet incompatible, why is it incompatible? Looks, the lot next to it is vacant. Is that just because it's RE?
Yes, so they would be changing the use to the religious institution. So to the right of the property is a single-family use on that side. And then they would be screening their vehicle parking areas on the other side with their tribal way there.
Okay. All right. Any questions of the staff from the board? Applicants are here. Think any questions of the applicants? Any question? Any opposition to this request? Any opposition? Motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the conditional use permit, document number 2024C-33 for a religious institution with the conditions as presented in the staff report. The drainage plan must be submitted to Warren County Public Works for review prior to issuance of a paving permit. Applicants must apply for a change of use permit and sign permit to the Warren County Building Services Office. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the use is not detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare in the zone in which it is proposed. The use will not contribute toward an overburden of municipal services. The use will not result in increased traffic conditions, additional parking problems, substantial increase in population density, environmental problems have constituted a nuisance, that the use otherwise meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance. With the added thing, if the property is ever sold, the CUP will be not forward.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, on that motion, there was some mention on condition 3 about if the property sold, that the conditional use be null and void. Is that, you said that you're accepting the condition, so I assume that's adopted in your motion?
Yes.
If the property sells, that the conditional use will be null and void?
Yes.
That's what he said.
He repeated that. Second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Lockwood, second by Ms. Atkinson.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
I just want to clarify something. Is it too late? I just want to make sure we didn't talk about something. I want to make sure I understood and they understood. Is that okay?
There's already been a motion made, and we're in the process of the vote.
And we ask opposition and
I'm sorry, I didn't realize. You had that conversation real quick. I don't understand, and I don't think they understand. It was just never discussed between the board.
the only thing is, the motion is to approve what the request is, but if they sell the property, the conditional use permit will be null and void.
Okay.
That's the motion.
Yeah, that's the conversation.
That's it.
So if you sell the property, you will no longer have this. I'm sorry, I thought that was good. Just then.
Okay. Did I screw up? I asked if we had any questions of the applicant.
No.
Stick by your guns here.
Mr. Chairman, we already have the motion's been made, and the process has been seconded. I don't know if they understand the procedure here, but They are the applicants. Did they have something to add? I mean, do you have something to add to,
Okay, come on up then, we will
we want to make sure everybody gets their day.
we'll start over then. We'll start over.
I'm so sorry.
And we need to get your full name and address, ma'am.
My full name is Hồng Nguyen. My address is 224 Grand Teton Way, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
And you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the reason we asked to have this thing passed to the next owner because based on past experience, last year or 2 years ago, we applied for the same condition, and the nun who owned the building and tried to run the house was sick. And she had to move. She could not do that. So we invite somebody else come in, buy the house, and practice the Buddhism religious with us. And we really, really would like to have a house close to house because we're of the population of about 300 Vietnamese here in Bowling Green. We don't have a temple. So in order to practice that, we have to drive to Nashville. So we are really lucky this time to have a nun that agreed to stay here and practice that with us. And I'm afraid that if anything happened to the nun or the monk, then we have to go through this again.
That's correct.
It's a long process. And it's difficult for us because we come and go, but we would like to have a religious house here for the people in Bowling Green to practice.
So you're concerned about the ownership, is that what I'm hearing?
Just the CUP, yeah, being eligible. The reason we do that is because if someone else buys it, they may not adhere to the conditions that we put on this request and may not adhere to the request that you have done, like the number of people, the parking places, and so forth and so on. And the reason that if the ownership changes, that's to prevent somebody else from coming in and buying the property and just doing whatever they want to do with it. So they will have to come back and if it's been approved twice, I can't speak for the future, but the odds are to be approved again. But that is to prevent the property from being overloaded, being unused in an unreasonable use. Am I correct on this, Rachel?
Well, just to clarify, if this were to be approved as presented without the condition of it being void for future ownership, if it runs with the land, that's okay because the new owner is bound by the same exact conditions that are before you this evening. If they did not want to abide by those, they would have to come back to you and ask to amend the application. Otherwise, if they just moved in and did whatever they wanted, we would do code enforcement because they would be in violation of the approved conditions for the permit.
Okay.
So you're saying adding it does not preclude them from continuing, provided somebody else doesn't come in and try to use the facility in some other way?
What I'm saying is that the conditions that are on page 1, if you were to, wait, sorry, I'm on the wrong staff report. The conditions that are on page 2, number 3.
Right.
If you omit that, any future owner would still have to abide by number 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. So no more than 40 people in the congregation. And so they would still have to follow all of these things, or, if they wanted to build a meditation room, it couldn't be larger than 3,000 square feet. They would still have to follow this plan regardless of who the owner is. Now, if a future owner, let's say they wanted to increase the congregation size to 50, well, they would have to come back before you to do that because that condition would still be in place regardless of who owns the property.
Do you understand?
Yes, I do. That's the reason we asked for it, and she can help us.
Pardon me, Board. Do you mind if I say a couple of things on behalf of my client? Do I need to swear in or anything?
Your full name and address?
I'm attorney Bobby Catherine
Oh, I'm sorry.
Lyon.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, you all. To clarify what my client is trying to address here is in their culture and in their religion, this property will essentially it'll keep transferring to the new monk. And so this last time what had happened, as she stated, the nun got horribly ill and needed necessary medical treatment that she could not receive here. And so that just put a pinch on the situation of transferring title and then bringing in another monk to help facilitate their religion here locally without having to travel to another state. And so that's why they wanted to remove this provision, so that when the next monk comes in, they can sell the property to the new monk and down the line, so that they always have these requirements in place.
Didn't you say in the CUP will move forward? Isn't that what you said?
Yes.
Which means that the CUP would go with the new owner, right? That's what we're voting on, is that correct? Yeah.
I don't think that's what, that's what we wanted to do, but I don't.
That's what his
We
motion
didn't
said.
remove.
And what, did y'all understand the motion say that? He said to move forward.
Yeah, the way I understand the motion, it was going to include this condition 3. So the way the motion reads is precisely as proposed and being requested.
Yeah.
So that this conditional use permit would not terminate if they transfer the property to a new owner.
It says if it's ever sold or the applicant ceases to use, the conditional use permit will be null and void.
I think the motion
sold.
was to approve the conditions as stated in the staff report.
Right.
If it's the desire of the board to remove condition 3, then the motion would need to be amended to remove condition.
Your motion was to prove it the way it's presented, right?
Right, but if we do that, that's going to mean that if it's sold, they're going to lose the facility.
Oh, okay.
Or they may have to come back here and renew
Yeah.
again.
Correct.
And that's what we have done with others at properties.
Yes.
I mean, if somebody wants to come back and use it either for the same purpose or a different purpose.
The way I understood Jim's motion, though, was to
Wait,
move
it's
forward.
not Jim, it's Dr. Fitz.
I mean, Jim made the motion.
Yes, I'm sorry.
The way I understood it was, you said to move forward. To me, that means that the conditional use permit will move forward with the new owners and the
But
buyers.
that's not what number 3 says. And if we
Right,
adopt
he
them as
didn't-
they are, so you want to amend 3, Jim?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, that's,
Okay.
all right. We're saying the same thing.
yes,
Yeah.
you are now.
We're saying the same, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So to be clear now, we are saying that if they were to sell the property, this conditional use permit travels with the land, like it holds, okay.
Correct. Well, everybody agree on that
That's
now?
what we want.
Yeah, everybody
you
agrees
for it.
on that now? Y'all good with it? Everybody understand?
Working on it.
Hoy, you okay with it?
Yep.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Mr. Lockwood, you've amended your motion to remove condition number 3, correct? And it stands in all other respects as made. Okay, so there's a second on that motion. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
that
Yeah,
motion.
yeah.
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson, second. All right. Call the roll again.
Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes. Thank you. Your request has been approved the way you liked it. The way I heard him say that motion, he was eliminating 3, but he didn't say eliminating 3. He said the conditional use permit will move forward with the sale. So that's where we got confused. But everything's good. Y'all are okay.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Go out there and pray and have a big time.
Well, I don't think we're done with that one.
Oh, we're not done with that?
No, there's variances and waivers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Have to have another motion.
Okay, the variance.
Have to go back.
The landscape variance, what we're talking about now, right? Okay. We have a motion for the variance. Somebody get into it?
I got it.
Okay.
I make the motion to approve the request for variance in a waiver docket number 2024-V-24, a variance of 10 feet from the required 10-foot landscape buffer, a variance of 10 feet from the required 10 feet incompatible land use buffer, a waiver of 15% from the required maximum 30% lot coverage in the RE zone to allow a total lot coverage of 45%. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the granting of these variances and waiver will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulation.
This is proper motion.
All right. Motion by Ms. Atkinson and second by
Second.
Mr. Lockwood.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes. Now everything's been approved. Thank you all very much for coming. Appreciate it. Sorry about the confusion. Okay, our next request tonight, Light Mission Pentecostal Church of Bowling Green, care of Celestion Mishak, have filed an application requesting to amend an existing conditional use permit to operate a religious institution, more specifically to adjust the number of parking spaces and to account for future accessory structures on the property located at Crutzen Drive, approximately 449 feet southwest of Angora Court. This property is zoned RM3, townhouse multifamily residential. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on October the 8th. The current zoning is RM3. The current land use is vacant. And there is the applicant site plan for your review. The applicants are requesting to amend their existing CUP for a religious institution, more specifically to adjust the number of parking spaces and to account for future accessory structures on the property. The original CUP was approved in August of 2021. Below, the zoning ordinance reference, Article 5, Section 5.1, the use table, a conditional use permit is required to operate a religious institution on property zoned RM3. Below that are the conditions that the applicants have supplied. Number one, the maximum congregation size will be 120 people. Number two, the principal structure square footage will be no greater than 4,900 square feet. Number three, any accessory structures will total no more than 1,700 square feet. Number four, the building height will be no more than 1 story. Number five, there will be a minimum of 30 parking spaces, but no more than 50 parking spaces. Number six, the freestanding signage will be limited to a total of 24 square feet. Number seven, access to the property shall be coordinated with the Bowling Green Public Works Department. Number eight, church-related activities will take place between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., with exceptions for special days, including but not limited to Christmas Eve, New Year's, Easter, weddings, and funerals. And if you look on page 2, to the bullet point, we tried to summarize the differences between the two applications. So conditions for both 2021 and 2024 applications are very similar. The 2021 application included a total of 50 parking spaces and did not include future plans for accessory structures. The new application is proposing a minimum of 30 parking spaces, but no more than 50 spaces, and any future accessory structures will not total more than 1,700 square feet. Below that are the conditional use permit findings for your review. Looking back at page 1 to points to consider, there are none pending any public hearing and testimony of any of the items in the staff report. So
All right.
that's all we have. But we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the staff of the board? Any questions of the staff? The applicants are here. Y'all the applicants. Any questions of the applicants from the board? Any opposition to this request? Motion, please.
I make a motion we approve the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C-34 for a religious institution with the conditions as presented in the staff report. Testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the use is not detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare in the zone which is proposed. The use will not contribute to an overburdening of municipal services. The use will not result in increased traffic congestion, additional parking problems, substantial increase in population density, and environmental problems or constitute a nuisance, and that the use otherwise meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And this is compatible with the neighborhood.
Second?
Motion by Dr. Fitz, second by Ms. Atkinson.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell, Yes. Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes, your request has been approved. Thank you all for coming down. Appreciate it. Good night. Thank you. All right, any old business? New business? Yep.
I'll just mention that the November 19th, we have a transportation plan meetings, two simultaneous ones going on from 5 to 7 p.m. One at Grand River Area Development District, their office, the other at Buchanan Park Tennis Facility. It just invite anybody out who can make that and give us input on that transportation plan. If you can't make it, you can go on our website, and there's a link to the transportation plan website. And there's a survey there that people can take, and that will help us develop the goals and objectives for the plan. And then also, there's an interactive map that is starting to get a lot of stuff put on it, where you can put any problem points or pain points you have in the transportation system. Don't assume we know about them, just put them on the map, and we'll take all that input as the first round of our public input. And then the plan expectation to be completed in August of 25, and there will be another round of public input at a later date. But we need all the help we can get in trying to help identify the issues with our transportation system, any public infrastructure we need to be thinking about, looking at, develop, prioritize. A whole lot of need, $1 billion of need, and about a $90 million a year budget. So we have to make a lot of decisions based off that input. So.
There's not many roads here that don't need some kind of work done to them.
What time is that on the 19th?
Yeah, 5 to 7 p.m.
5, okay.
There are two different places you can go at the same time. One's the Grand River Area Development District office, and then the other is the Buchanan Park Tennis Facility.
All right. Any other old business tonight? New business? Anything? Oh,
I'm not sure this constitutes, but I want to make sure I clearly understood Mr. Hodgins. When you said we had if people knowingly violate, which is the motion to deny the Smiths Grove property, if someone knowingly violates, it's an automatic denial.
The way that statute reads, I think it's 100.243, it says that if they're requesting a variance for something that was a result of their willful violation, then the board shall deny it.
Okay.
So if you make the finding, well, he willfully constructed that carport since he had already been told to stop.
Gotcha.
Then you're directed to deny it.
Okay. I just wanted clarification on that for future.
that was the main reason I voted against it.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, anything else? We're adjourned.